Hey, we're going to get started. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can find your seats. We're going to get started with our choir, and then we'll go live. On this evening of Kol Nidre, eternal God, who calls us to repentance, we're grateful for the opportunity to answer your call, to forsake our sins and to turn to you with all our hearts. On this evening of Kol Nidre, I ask any of you who are here tonight, or any of you who are at home, to please forgive me if I have wronged you in any way. Please know that it was not intentional. I ask you to forgive me because I want to be your rabbi. If I walked by you in a hurry and I didn't say hello, I am sorry. If I said something in jest and I offended you, or seemed insensitive or caused you embarrassment, I am sorry. If I didn't call you when you expected, I apologize. For any wrong I've committed, I ask your forgiveness. But if this public apology is not enough, I want you to call me. I want you to come in and sit down so we can reconcile. I want the opportunity to either explain what happened or to learn from you what I did wrong and to apologize in person. I seek forgiveness so that we can be whole again as rabbi and congregation. On this night of atonement, we yearn to become better than we have been. For you, O Lord, have given us the great gift of atonement, enabling individuals and communities to return to you and to do your will. Open our hearts to the call of the sacred night, so that the words of our prayers may remain with us, to renew us, to refine us. May our deeds make us worthy to hear your divine assurance, Salachti, I have forgiven.
Lai, 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 lai.
The Kol Nidre service, one of the most sacred services we have. Those who are in the sanctuary are wearing a talit. It's the one time in the evening that we wear a talit. It's part of the Kol Nidre process. So if you're at home and you have a talit and you're not wearing it, we encourage you to put it on, and it makes a distinction of the sanctity of Kol Nidre to be able to feel this call that we make now. You'll be able to follow in the pages of page 398 or page 204 in the Rabbinical Assembly Machzor on page 204. By the authority of the heavenly court, by the authority of this earthly court, with divine consent, with the consent of this congregation, we hereby declare it permissible to pray with those who have transgressed. We rise at this time for Kol Nidre as we call up those who will be holding the Torah scrolls at this time.
בישיבה של מעלה ובישיבה של מטה על דעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל אנו מתירים להתפלל עם העבריינים. וחרמי וקונומי וכינויי וכינוסי שבועות דהינדה ודאישתבנה ודאחרינה ודאסרנה על נפשתה מיום כיפורים זה עד יום כיפורים הבא עלינו. כל הון יכרתנה והון כל הון איי 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 יהון שרון שביעיתין בתלן ומבוטלין לשרירין ולקיימים נדרש שרי לא נדרי Ve'asarna la esarei. Ay, 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 ay. Ushavuotayna, Ushavuot.
Kol Nidre v'yesarei v'charamei v'konomei v'chinusei v'chinusei Ushavuot Dindana Udeish Tivana Udeacharimna Vidui Asana Al Nafshatana Miyom Kippurim Ad Yom Kippurim Abaleinu Letova Icharatna v'hon kon yehon sharan yehon sharan Shavitin B'tei Ushavu Atana La Shavuot
Kol Nidre ve'esarei v'charamei v'konomei v'chinuyei v'chinusei Shatana Shavuot La Shavuot אשר נסעת לעם הזה ממצרים ועד הנה Amar.
Remain standing, please, for the Baruch Hu, page 408 in the Machzor that we have here, or page 207.
Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam.
You may be seated. In the Machzor Kaddish, the one that we use here at Temple Aliyah, you'll be able to follow along in an English reading. We'll do it responsively on page 409. So if you're here or if you're at home and you have this reading, you can respond as well as I begin. Praise are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, whose word brings on the dusk of evening, the gates of dawn. Your understanding regulates time. The stars above follow their appointed rounds in response to your divine will. You remove the day and bring on the night. You separate one from the other. May you rule over us as you rule over nature. Praise are you, O Lord, who brings the evening dusk.
מעביר יום ומביא לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני. Here's your part.
Once that we can learn something about people from the differences in how they ask us to pay attention to them. Some people will say, look, and then explain what they want you to pay attention to. Some people will say, listen. Some people might say, you see, or some people would say, hear me out. And I've been told that sometimes we can tell what types of learners people are from the way they start those sentences. The people who start with look or you see, they might be more likely to be visual learners, meaning they know that when they look and see something, they are more likely to understand, so they want you to do the same. And for those who tend to start sentences with listen or hear me out, they might be more likely to be auditory learners. They want you to listen closely to what they have to say because they know that when they listen closely, it helps them understand. We all develop these different speech patterns, but we don't always think about the style of learning and understanding of the person we're actually talking to. Just because we tend to understand things best in one way, of course, doesn't mean that's the best way to communicate with all others. And in fact, sometimes when we tell people to look and listen, we might be doing the precise opposite of looking and listening ourselves. We can be so concerned with being heard and being seen that we forget to truly hear and see the other. When we say the Shema, we command the Jewish people to listen. Listen, Israel, Adonai, our God, Adonai is one. We take on that role as messenger, spreading God's word to everyone. But do we stop and listen too? Do we take a look at ourselves and wonder, when are the times when I have neglected to look and see what was in front of me? When are the times when I have neglected to get quiet and listen to what was going on around me? As we call on our fellow Jews to listen, let's hear our own call as well. Let's find the quiet space from which to listen. Listen, Israel, followed by the Shema, page 412 and 208.
Listen, Israel, Adonai, our God is one. Listen, Israel, את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
We continue quietly to ourselves on page 414 and 416.
Elohechem
We continue on page 418 or 210 with Micha Mocha.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi chamocha ne'etar ba'kodesh Nora tehi goto sefele Malchutecha uvanecha Bukei hayam lifnei Moshe היפדה אדוני את יעקב וגם לו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני
We continue with Hashki Venu, page 420 or 211.
So I say this every year, but somehow it just really feels different because we're here together and we weren't last year. And so I want to invite you to please sing with me. This is an opportunity to share in a beautiful prayer written by Craig Taubman, a beautiful lullaby asking God to shelter us with the wings of peace. And we've been sheltered a lot. Let's just sing that beautiful prayer of shelter together as a community.
Adonai, Eloheinu
nice to hear people singing together, isn't it? And you at home, I hope you can feel the presence of the community with you, and for us to be able to be there with you, whether you're inside, outside, wherever you are, to be part of a sacred community. It is custom here at Temple Aliyah, long before I arrived, actually, Kol Nidre, to be able to hear from our president. Just some words, some acknowledgement, a message. And it's my honor to be able to call up Debbie Strom, our fairly newly installed president, who's going to share some words. She's going to be, by the way, we have been very clear about adhering to the protocols for the COVID in terms of people remaining masked except for clergy, which, by the way, is part of the actual protocols that clergy are allowed to be unmasked, but you should know that we are tested weekly. And Debbie Strom, who's going to come forward and speak without a mask, was tested just hours ago and is negative. And so just want to make clear so there should be no misinterpretation of following our protocols. Debbie Strom, please.
Good evening. It's good to be here. If you're here in the sanctuary, welcome back. If you're watching from home, I hope we'll be seeing each other very soon. Over the last week, I have been thinking about recent events in the newspaper headlines. 20th anniversary of 9/11, hurricanes, wildfires, record heat, climate change, Afghanistan, election, and of course, pandemic. And then this last weekend, I was reading the Jewish Journal. I was so excited to see it out there in the Galleria. It's only the second issue in print in almost a year. And yes, I do read newspapers, and I do read the Jewish Journal in print. Words kept jumping out at me as I read. Remember, rearrange, rebuild, recall, refugees, reform, recover, resume, respond. And of course, words for these days of awe: reflect, regret, refrain, resolve, and return. Did you notice that all of these words start with the letters R-E? I got curious, so I Googled the prefix re, and I found out that the English language has thousands of words that begin with this prefix. In fact, while preparing my words for these remarks, I found it's almost impossible to eliminate words that start with R-E. Then I found a website with lessons for English learners. It defined the prefix re as meaning either again or back, or else it's an indicator of repetition. How amazing is it that we have so many words that allow us to convey that we are either looking back or that we are going to be doing something again. Either alone or together, do we look back simply to remember, or is it so we understand what's already happened? Or do we look back so that we can try to do something different or better the next time? Maybe sometimes we dwell in the past with regret, but other times we are actually looking into the future with hope and purpose. Remember last year when our physical synagogue was virtually shut down and we all participated in the High Holy Days online as our clergy held services in an empty sanctuary. Some of us came in our cars for the closest we could get to an in-person service, Kol Nidre, and also a parking lot shofar service. Did you anticipate then that we would spend another Passover on Zoom or continue attending online Shabbat services, virtual Kaddish lunches, virtual programs, and Zoom classes for as many months as we did? I, for one, most certainly did not anticipate that. Did you anticipate when you postponed your simchas that your celebrations would still not be what you expected almost a year later? So one word that doesn't start with RE and became very popular is the word pivot. From going virtual, opening in person, to returning to virtual, to opening back up again in person, boy, did Aliyah pivot. Clergy, professional staff, school directors, teachers, and maintenance staff worked thousands of hours with grace and professionalism, and they made it look effortless to the rest of us. Member volunteers, including your board and the COVID committee, spent countless hours continuing to make sure Aliyah stayed healthy and strong, and that everyone on campus, from preschoolers to staff to those of us attending programs and services, also stayed safe. Volunteers from the community of caring helped keep our community connected. I am only sorry that there are too many names to mention in the short time that I've been allotted. These last few months have set the tone for a few of my favorite words beginning with RE. Reimagine, return, renew. After a successful, if scaled-down preschool year in summer camp, ECE has already begun the year in full force. Enrollment in Baby and Me is open to the community for classes beginning in October. Religious school is returning in person with a fresh look. The Severance Center has partnered with our neighbors at Shomrei Torah in the Jewish Learning Cooperative for children in grades K through 6. Aliyah and Shomrei have also launched a new program for families with children in TK through 2nd grade called Bagel, Belong, Gather, and Learn. This monthly program reaches beyond our synagogues and is open to all Jewish families in the wider community. And the first family gatherings have already taken place and received great reviews. And I don't know if you saw them when you came in, but there's banners outside for the Nook on Valley Circle. This is another new partnership and will offer a full-day infant and toddler daycare center for the West Valley community, along with classes for their parents and grandparents. Reimagine, return, renew. Lounge nights and in-person events for teens have returned. With the assistance of some highly motivated participants, Rabbi Galko created a thriving 20s and 30s group, which meets regularly outside of the walls of Aliyah. I'm sure this program wasn't exactly how Rabbi Galko first envisioned it, becoming virtual within months, but this group is meeting again now in person, still thriving. TNC, the volunteer-driven group for adults who have already raised their children, returned from virtual to in-person events. Men's Club and Women of Aliyah, we welcomed you to their activities online, and they welcome you again in person. Adult education opportunities were abundant on Zoom throughout the past many months, with many of us finding that it was easy to participate. We didn't have to leave the house. We didn't even have to be local to the synagogue area. So watch for more learning opportunities, both virtual and in person. Reimagine, return, renew. So we all know the many ways Aliyah is here for us. In fact, Aliyah is in its 60th year. I'm sure you noticed that we are asking you to tell your Aliyah story as part of our celebration of shared history and community. I am not going to tell you a story, but I am going to share a few Aliyah moments. Many of you know that my husband Stan's parents were at the forefront of creating a new conservative shul in the West Valley, and he became the very first bar mitzvah when Aliyah was only a couple of years old, way before we had a building of our own. So you might say Stan and his family experienced one of the first Aliyah moments. Fast forward many years, and we joined as a family 2 years ahead of Rabbi Vogel's arrival. On one of our first encounters with him, we explained how we wanted to attend family services, but our children were too loud and fidgety, and we really didn't feel welcome at a family service. Rabbi Vogel said, "That's okay, have them bring a book and read. My kids do that." And we found out, indeed, we were welcome. A few years later, when we were going through what seemed to be a crisis at that time, Rabbi Vogel approached us out of the blue when we were here out in the courtyard and said, "You should make an appointment to see me." To this day, I still don't know how he knew that we should make an appointment to see him. So my family has had many Aliyah moments since then, and not just Rabbi Vogel moments. But these many moments inspired me to give my time and hopefully my talents to Aliyah. I invite you to share your wisdom, your time, and your talents with Aliyah. Reimagine, return, renew. On this Yom Kippur, I wish you all a meaningful and easy fast. Gemar Chatima Tova, may you be sealed in the book of life for good.
Thank you, Divya. It was beautiful. We'll talk a little bit more tomorrow about Aliyah stories, but that was your Aliyah story. It was beautiful. We'll continue with the Chatzi Kaddish. Please, page 422 or page 212.
Shema Rabbi. Amen. Be'alma tifrach chirutei, ve'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yamechon, u'v'chayedechon, Beit Yisrael. Ba'agalau v'zman kariv, v'yimeru amen.
The Amidah that we have at Kol Nidre and we will have through all of the day tomorrow of Yom Kippur includes the Ashamnu, the Al-Chetz, as a reminder as you go through, and we do it in a moment silently, you'll be striking your chest on each of those acknowledgments of the Ashamnu and of the Al-Chetz. Before we enter into our private meditations and our prayers, I'm going to invite you to rise, and we have this meditation at the beginning of Adonai Tzvatai Tiftachu Fi Yagili Tilatecha. God, please open my lips, my mouth may declare your praise. You'll find the Amidah beginning either page 424 or page 213.
Adonai Tzvatai Tiftachu Ufi Yagite Hilatecha. God, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
We begin our private personal prayers of the Amidah.
עושה שלום, 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 במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום, 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 במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. ועל כל ישראל ואמרו
On page 446, or page 223, Ya'aleh means to elevate, to rise up. And each of these stanza begins with the word Ya'aleh. By the way, during the Kaddish, for example, we emphasize that notion of elevating, La'ela Ula'ela. And the idea is that we should elevate ourselves to almost to the heavens and to try and be as angels if we can in terms of being at one with God and purity of this day of Yom Kippur in particular. We're going to rise, please, as the ark is opened, and we're going to share Ya'aleh, Ya'aleh. You'll be able to follow the first two stanzas, the last two stanzas, and we're going to have a video that's going to lead us through and join along with Ya'aleh. Whether you're home or here, we'll join together.
Ya'aleh, Ya'aleh, Tachanunenu, Me'eret, Ve'yavo Shavatenu, Miboker, Ve'yera Erinunenu, Ad Aret, Ve'yera Erinunenu, Ad Aret. Ya'aleh, Ya'aleh, Kolenu, Me'eret, Ve'yavo Tzidkatenu, Miboker, Ve'yera Epidonenu, Ad Aret, Ve'yera Epidonenu, Ad Aret. Ya'aleh, Ya'aleh, Dovkenu, Me'eret, Ve'yavo Gilenu, Miboker, Ve'yera Parashatenu, Ad Aret, Ve'yera Parashatenu, Ad Aret. Ya'aleh, Ya'aleh, Enkatenu, Me'eret, Ve'yavo Elecha, Miboker, Ve'yera Eleinu, Ad Aret, Ve'yera Eleinu, Ad Aret.
We remain standing as the ark is closed. Adonai, Adonai, Slach Lanu, page 454 and 232.
Adonai, Adonai, Eranu, Eranu, Erech Habayim, Berach Chesed ve'emet, Nose Chesed v'alavim, Nose Avodah v'resha, חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקה, וסלחת לעווננו ולחטאתנו ונחלתנו. סלח לנו אבי, כי חטאנו, מחלנו מלכנו, כי בקשנו, כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח, כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח, ורב חסד ורב חסד לכל קוראיך, ורב חסד ורב חסד לכל קוראיך.
You may be seated. When Andrew, now 31 years old, first moved to LA 3 years ago, he wanted to find a Jewish community. So he wandered into a synagogue, realized that he was 30 years younger than everyone else in the sanctuary, but still sat down in the back. No one came up to talk to him. He listened to the announcements at the end of the service to hear if there were any events coming up for people in their 20s and 30s, but he heard nothing. He waited around after the service into Kaddish, thinking maybe then someone would welcome him. Someone would notice that he seemed to be new. Maybe someone would tell him where all the young people were. But people stuck to their usual friends, and he left without finding the Jewish community he was looking for. So the following week, Andrew tried a different synagogue, but the result was the same. Again and again, he found himself in synagogues that did not seem to be for him. They seemed to be for people at a different life stage, and they didn't seem particularly interested in finding a place for him. Thank you. Can you help us understand our millennial children? And what you were really asking me is, Judaism's important to me. How do I pass it down to the next generation, Ledor Vador? This question about millennials is one I've thought about often. What makes us tick? What gets us involved? What do we want out of Judaism? And what should Judaism demand from us? To answer these questions, I interviewed a group of 9 LA Jews in their 20s and 30s, running the gamut in terms of their level of Jewish involvement. Now, I should mention these were 9 people who were all interested in having this conversation with me, so they have at least some affinity for Jewish community or connection to Temple Aliyah, even if it's minimal. So after 9 interviews, 2 years of building 3 different 20s and 30s groups here at Aliyah, and of course, a lifetime of being a millennial Jew myself, I am finally ready to share my thoughts. So here it is. What millennials want you to know about the future of Jewish community. So millennials, currently defined as people who are around age 25 to 40, are unique in a few key ways. First, we tend to be very comfortable with and have great access to technology and social media. This means we can easily reach lots of people at once, but sometimes, as I think we've all learned over the past year and a half in this pandemic, that access can come at the expense of creating real, intimate, in-person connections. We've also been trained to have a somewhat short attention span. There's a reason that TikToks and Instagram Reels are very short. And these short attention spans fit well into our go, go, go lifestyles, always feeling too busy, having trouble slowing down. On the one hand, that means that we feel like we never have enough time to be involved in a synagogue. And on the other hand, we desperately need a spiritual component of our lives to remind us to slow down and build personal relationships. On top of all of that, Jewish millennials are more integrated into the secular world than any generation before us, as each of the past few generations has been accepted by society more than the previous one, at least here in the US. So in talking with these 9 people, the message I heard over and over again is that what we want is community. We want to be part of a community of people who share something in common, whether it's a common belief system or common traditions and customs, a community that loves and supports one another. There's a famous line in Pirkei Avot, a compilation of ethical teachings from around 200 CE, Al tifrosh min hatzibor. Do not separate yourself from the community. This is part of the basis for communal prayer and why a Jew is not supposed to live in isolation. And millennials are taking this seriously. Each of these 9 young adults I spoke with emphasized again and again that community is the foundation of what Judaism means to them. And yet, the other statement I heard repeatedly is, people our age just don't go. 20s and 30s feel that no one our age attends synagogue services or programs. Of course, not everyone wants to go, as is the case at any age, but some people genuinely do. And part of what's holding them back is knowing that other 20s and 30s won't be there. It's a bit of a chicken and egg problem. If I go, no one else my age will be there. So no 20s and 30s show up at all. A 32-year-old woman told me that her ideal Jewish community is one that she would look forward to going to because it would be a chance to catch up with her friends, where she would feel that that is where community is happening. Maybe they would go to synagogue and then go to a nearby park for a picnic, she told me. She doesn't typically go to Shabbat services now, but she knows that if Shabbat services were a social community for her, she'd be happy to make it part of her life. But the reality is that there's a perception that a synagogue is not the place for us, that there's nothing here for us, that there's programming for every other stage of life, but not us. A few people I spoke with told me that they believe there's a bit of a misunderstanding about why we're not showing up. They said it's not because we're millennials. It's not because we're some new, special type of generation that has no interest in Judaism. It's because we're at an in-between age, in-between life stages that synagogues tend to focus on. We're not children attending religious school or coming to synagogue with our parents. And we're also not yet parents ourselves, bringing our own kids to preschool, especially since our generation is having kids later. This life stage means that we have independence in a way that no other generation has right now. So we don't necessarily feel external pulls to be connected to Jewish community. Perhaps this has always been the case. Perhaps every generation has worried about the 20s and 30s and whether they will stay Jewishly involved. But the reality is that this in-between life stage is precisely when we rely on community the most. Now, this wouldn't really be a sermon about millennials if I didn't mention the TV show Friends. And of course, I watched the Friends reunion special several months back, and I was struck by the show's creators' statement that the show is about the time in your life when your friends are your family. It's a show about a group of friends in precisely this in-between stage of life, in between being children and being partnered off or being parents entering that next stage. Because that's the time in life when we rely most on having a tight-knit community. And yet, that seems to be the life stage that traditional synagogues are not catering to. Al tifrosh min hatzibor. Millennials do not want to separate ourselves from community. We know that community is how we will be loved and supported during this in-between time in our lives. But even though we want to be supported and loved in community, the next major point I heard from almost all of the 20s and 30s I interviewed is that we don't only want to be loved and supported. We also want to be challenged. We want to feel totally comfortable in a Jewish community. But once we're comfortable, once we know we have the community's full support and love, we want to be pushed. We want to be pushed with new interpretations and new ways of thinking, new perspectives on family life, on Jewish life, new ways to understand the world around us outside the Jewish community. We want to learn new melodies and new rituals. We want to meet new people from different backgrounds. First, we need to be comfortable, but then we want to expand beyond our comfort zones. One important way that we can provide comfort is to eliminate the shame around varying degrees of Jewish backgrounds and knowledge and observance. I have found that people constantly feel the need to qualify their beliefs and practices by admitting that they are not an expert in Judaism. So many young people say to me with shame, "I'm not that good at reading Hebrew," or "I don't remember all the Torah stories," or "Sometimes I'm not sure when I'm supposed to sit or stand or bow during services." Everyone feels that they don't know enough, and then we can't be comfortable to be pushed outside of our comfort zones because we're so worried about not embarrassing ourselves. We haven't been able to establish a baseline level of comfort within the community. I want millennials and everyone to know that whatever they know or don't know, whatever they practice or don't practice, whatever they remember or don't remember, that's okay. And they can still be an integral part of our community. And then I want to push them to learn something new, to push themselves to learn something new or try a new ritual only once they feel comfortable. Abraham Joshua Heschel, one of the leading Jewish philosophers of the 20th century, applied the famous quote about comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable to Judaism by asserting that prophets are tasked with leading Jews in this way. I have this quote on a piece of artwork hanging in my office, actually, because even though we're not prophets, we have that very same job today in Jewish community. We have to comfort those who are afflicted, and we have to afflict those who are comfortable. We have to push to expand our comfort zones. I worry that when we think about programming for millennials, we only think about the comfort piece, and we forget that young people, too, want to be pushed to explore. In fact, when we're only comfortable, community can become boring. Afflicting the comfortable, as Heschel put it, is part of what keeps Jewish community exciting and compelling. I want to share one more overarching finding from my interviews. Millennials like to be counted upon. We know that our generation has a reputation for being flaky, as we say, not showing up when we say we will, or maybe not wanting to make commitments. But the reality is that we appreciate being counted upon. A number of people told me that they know that they personally can be a little flaky. They get invited to a birthday party and they never really RSVP, and then that night comes around and maybe they go, maybe they decide if they got a better offer. And millennials recognize that behavior is annoying. And they'd actually prefer to be held accountable. If instead of just an invitation to the birthday party, they're asked to come early and help set up, or to pick up the birthday cake, they show up. And we millennials like that. We like knowing that others are counting on us and that we can make a difference. We don't want to be assigned accountability, though, outside of an emergency. It needs to be a role or a task that we're genuinely aligned with. And when it is, we really do want to be counted upon. In the context of Jewish community, I can think of at least 3 ways that happens. The most obvious is through leadership roles, like serving on a committee, serving on the board, or even just being assigned a particular specific task. The second way to build accountability is through small groups. When we break large communities into smaller groups, like a chavurah, for example, not only do we help people develop those tight-knit relationships we're looking for, but we also make everyone feel accountable for showing up, because people will notice if we're not there. The third way, ultimately, is when millennials become parents who want their kids to learn about Judaism and experience Jewish community. This is another way that people feel responsible to get involved. And many millennials are not yet in that third category, but it doesn't mean we can't find accountability through leadership roles, small groups, or in other ways. We want a close community that includes us, that supports us and pushes us, and that invites us to be counted upon. Within that community, people have all different interests, just like in any other generation. Some people enjoy traditional prayer services, some people connect through social experiences, like playing on the synagogue softball team. Some people want intellectual discussion groups. Some people want to focus on social activism. Several people I spoke with told me how important music is in an ideal Jewish community. Many of them mentioned how important it is to them that their community be egalitarian, welcoming to interfaith families, and welcoming to people of any race, gender, and sexuality. They told me that when people feel othered, they will be turned off, and so will their friends and family. Several people also mentioned wanting more education about Israel. They feel that they're constantly being asked questions about Israel, especially from their non-Jewish friends, and they feel they don't know enough. So our interests are broad, but what we have in common is a desire for a close community that includes 20s and 30s, that supports and pushes us, and that invites us to be counted upon. So why discuss this on Kol Nidre? Kol Nidre means all vows. It's our moment to walk back the vows we made to God over the course of the year that we couldn't keep. But Kol Nidre does not nullify vows between people. In fact, this time of year is when we get serious about honoring our past commitments and making new ones that will strengthen our relationships and our community. So while we nullify vows between ourselves and God, what are the vows we're going to make right now to our community? Will we vow to welcome newcomers? Will we vow to make millennials and anyone else who walks through our doors feel comfortable, welcomed, at home in our space? Will we vow to create the kind of community where someone like 31-year-old Andrew doesn't leave thinking, this really isn't for me? Will we push ourselves out of our comfort zones so that others feel like they can do the same, even when we're not sure we know enough? Will we invite people in their 20s and 30s to be counted on as leaders in our community, emphasizing how important they are to us? I know that the future of the Jewish community is important to all of you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here tonight, or you wouldn't be watching on live stream. So make one of these commitments to yourself for the new year 5782. I might be biased, but I think that millennials have a lot to contribute to the Jewish world when we're given the chance. And we want to be given that chance. We want to take responsibility. We want to support and comfort one another. We want to challenge one another. And most of all, we want to be part of a close and loving community that includes us and our peers. It is my prayer this High Holy Day season that the Andrews of the world, the 20-something and 30-something seekers, find their way here. And that when they do, we are ready and waiting to embrace them. We'll continue now. We'll invite you to rise as the ark is open, page 458 or 233. We invite you to enjoy this video of Shema Kolenu and Hashivenu.
Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu Chus v'rachem aleinu V'kabel berachamim V'kabel berachamim U'v'ratzon et tfilateinu Tfilateinu U'v'ratzon et tfilateinu Tfilateinu Hear our voice, O Lord our God. Spare us, pity us, accept our prayer in your gracious love, in your gracious love. U'v'ratzon et tfilateinu, et tfilateinu. U'v'ratzon et tfilateinu, et tfilateinu. Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha, v'nashuva, v'nashuva, Kaddish, Kaddish, Yameinu תשליכנו תשליכנו מלפניך אל תשליכנו מלפניך ורוח קודשך אל תיקח ממנו אל תשליכנו לעת זקנו כי כלות כוחנו אל תעזבנו אל תעזבנו אדוני אלוהינו אל תרחק ממנו.
We remain standing as the ark is closed, page 460 or 234, Ki anu amecha.
Eloheinu v'Elokei avoteinu, slach lanu mechal lanu, kaper lanu. Ki anu amecha ve'ata Eloheinu, anu vanecha ve'ata Avinu, anu avadecha ve'ata Adonenu, anu
page 462 or page 235, the Asham news from Aleph to Taf. We think of those deeds that we fall short of, our sins in which we need to improve. Asham nu each time we'll repeat after the Chazan striking our chests.
Ay, 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 ay.
Standing, either page 467 or page 237, the Achetz. If you have the Rabbinical Assembly version, it's going to be a little bit different. The way that we do it here is Chazan will start us with the Achetz Chatanu Lefanecha, and then we're going to continue and we'll share and read together the English itself. So let's start off Achetz. Together by hardening our hearts. By speaking perversely. Publicly and privately. By corrupt speech. By evil thoughts. By insincere confession. Intentionally and unintentionally. By desecrating your name. By foolish talk. Knowingly and unknowingly. By bribery. By slander.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha.
in eating and drinking,
Ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha.
by false pride, by wanton glances,
by
by effrontery, by perverting justice, by envy, by being stubborn, by tale-bearing, by causeless hatred, by confusion of values. Standing as the ark is open, page 472 or page 243, Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kol Nidre Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu Malkeinu, Ki Eivanu Ma'asim, Aseh Imanu, Tzedaka v'chesed, Aseh Imanu, Tzedaka v'chesed, ve'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu chatanu lefanecha,
Avinu Malkeinu chatanu lefanecha, Avinu Malkeinu
Please repeat these lines after me. Avinu Malkeinu kol dveinu b'sefer chayim tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu shaltem b'sefer
Avinu Malkeinu kol dveinu b'sefer gula v'yeshua.
Avinu Malkeinu b'sefer parnasa.
Avinu Malkeinu kol dveinu b'sefer parnasa v'chalkala.
Avinu Malkeinu shaltem b'sefer zechuyot.
Avinu Malkeinu kol dveinu b'sefer zechuyot.
Avinu Malkeinu shaltem b'sefer slicha.
Avinu Malkeinu kol dveinu b'sefer slicha u'mechila.
Avinu Malkeinu
Marco Leno Khus Barachem, Leno Avinu Malkeinu Avinu Malkeinu aseh leman ba'eva esh uvamayim al kiddush shemecha. Avinu Malkeinu aseh leman im lo leman ayanu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu Malkeinu.
Together.
Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu Malkeinu, Ki Eivanu Ma'asim, Aseh Imanu,
You should be seated for a moment if you like for the Kaddish Shalem, page 476 or page 245.
Oh, say shalom v'brama, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru.
Amen. We're going to have you rise again, aleinu, page 478 or page 246.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'atenu ha'yosef שלא עשנו גויי ארצות ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה שלא שם חלקנו כהם וברור עלינו ככל המונם בענם קוראים הקדוש ברוך הוא שונו את השמיים ויושר את הכי נקבל לך ככתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר אדוני למלך כל הארץ היום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
You may be seated. On page 484, page 248, recited during the month prior to Rosh Hashanah and through these Yamim Norim, these high holy days, Psalm 27 be shared. We'll join along with the video, please.
Be'eretz
mourner's Kaddish, the page 482 or page 247. All who are in need or desire of reciting the mourner's Kaddish, we join together. Whether you're here in the sanctuary or at home, you can rise as well as we join together. Yit gadal ve'yit kadash shemei rabbah. Amen. Ve'alma divrach hiruteh ve'amlich malchuteh b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei techol beit Yisrael. V'galau v'zman kariv meru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam umei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei dekudesha b'richu le'ela u'le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran ve'alma v'meru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'meru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael meru. Amen. May God who establishes peace in the heavens grant peace and harmony for us, for all of Israel and all of humanity, as we say amen. You may be seated. I have some announcements, and then I'll finish with a story, and then we'll do a little bit of a Don Olam and get ourselves ready for Yom Kippur. Reminder for everyone about the picture frame that we sent home, by the way, as part of the High Holy Day experience. For those of you who are here or not here, hopefully at Rosh Hashanah you had people in that frame who weren't able to share it with you. We'd love you to put in that picture for tomorrow, especially picture of somebody that you are going to remember when we recite Yizkor, or somebody that you just, who's passed away and you still feel their presence, and you can put them by the TV or wherever you want. So that's the picture frame. Mincha, Ne'ilah, and Havdalah, as a reminder, is going to be all by live streaming tomorrow. We're going to have some people here, a very small group, reading Torah and other things for Mincha. We'll have a minyan, but everyone else will stay home and we'll be doing it by live streaming. For those of you who are here in person, by the way, if you're not coming back tomorrow and you would like to borrow the machzor, I use that word very carefully, borrow that machzor. And those of you at home who have them, we need them back eventually. Otherwise, next year, God willing, you're going to be here and go, I don't have a book. And we're going to say they're home with the other 100 kippot you have from Temple Aliyah. Just look in the drawer. So we need them back, but you can take them home. At the top of the stairs will be a way to check them out, only if you're not coming back tomorrow. If you have not returned with your sova, the food, you can do that tomorrow as well, and you can drop it off in the parking lot. Important. And as a reminder, tomorrow the afternoon study sessions will all be by Zoom. Last year it was great. We had lots of people who came, more so than we would have if we were in person, and so we want you to, you'll find out tomorrow. We'll announce them. It's in the publicity, but we'll put it on the screen for those people who are at home as well. Then you'll be able to join us, including at the end, Rabbi Galko and I are going to do Ask the Rabbi. And you can ask Rabbi Galko anything you like. About me, a millennial. She'll tell you all about that. Help me understand my kid, will you please? And that can turn into a whole hour itself. It's been so remarkable to be here together, to feel the holiness of this day, to feel the potential of change. Do you have sometimes a challenge changing? Like you just seem to do the same thing over and over. So it's a story of two guys who love to go moose hunting. They go every year into the back country of Canada, and they take a private little plane and they fly in and they go moose hunting, and they. So this year they went and they bagged two great big moose again, and they they radioed in for the pilot. They came in the little field. The plane came and landed, this tiny little plane, and the pilot looked at the two animals that they had bagged, and he said, "There's no way. We're just not going to put them in this plane because we're never going to make it." They said, "What do you mean?" Like, of course, we can't. We work so hard for these animals. You've got to take them. He goes, no, it's just not going to happen. He goes, look, last year, the pilot, we did the same thing, and they didn't give us a problem. He put them in the plane, and they argued back and forth, and finally the pilot relented. He realized he wasn't going to win this argument, so they put the animals in. They take off in the plane, and sure enough, within about 3 minutes, right? The plane hits the side of the mountain, right? And just crashes. And as they're getting out of the wreckage, one of the guys says, geez, where are we? And his friend responded to him. He looks around and says, I think we're about a mile further than we got last year. You do the same thing over and over sometimes and just wonder, why didn't it work? By the way, serious notes, relationships with people. Do you do the same thing over and over? And I always ask people when they come into my office, tell me about a conflict or something, and I'll say, does it surprise you? Has it ever worked before? They go, no. I go, why would you think it's going to work this time? Right? So how do we change? What are the things in our lives that we need to? What are the relationships? What is it about ourselves that we need to wake up and say, it's time to change? That's what Yom Kippur is really about, hitting it home. Let's conclude our service for tonight with Adon Olam. I'm going to invite you all to rise, whether you're home or whether you're here. You're going to find it page 488 or page 249. We'll do the first two stanzas and the last two stanzas. Let's hear you all. And at home, I want to hear you as well. Here we go. Shana Tova, we'll finish with a video. Shana Tova, everybody.
Shana Tova,